Today we're going to talk about a vanishing TV news anchor. Today's case is going to be the case of Jodi Huisentruit. Jodi disappeared on June 27th, 1995. So this is the oldest disappearance case I've covered. It's also a very well-known disappearance case. As we do in all the episodes, let's talk a little bit about Jodi's background. Jodi, at the time of her disappearance, was 27 years old. She was born in 1968. So as of 2023, that would make her 55. She went to school in St. Cloud, Minnesota. She grew up in Minnesota, and she studied broadcast journalism. She wanted to be on TV. Many of her friends said she wanted to be famous, and it's tough to decipher what exactly that means. It appears that she wanted to be a well-known personality. She probably wanted to be a TV news star, someone like a Katie Couric, Norah O'Donnell, someone who was nationally known for work as a journalist. Jodi had a very unique sounding voice, an accent. Let's take a look at that right now.
America's most highly publicized missing children.
Jodi was big into golf. She was actually on her golf team in high school, and she was actually quite good in it. She won a couple of tournaments. And at the time of her disappearance, Jodi was a morning anchor at her news station in Mason City, Iowa. At the time of her disappearance, Mason City, Iowa had a population of around 30,000. As of today, it's more closer to 27,000, so this is a pretty small town. Iowa's not a big state, not a lot of big cities. It was kind of in the middle of nowhere. There was a river running throughout the town. Being a morning anchor meant she sometimes had to be at the TV station at 4 a.m., which I couldn't do. Morning TV news anchors have crazy schedules. I couldn't do something like that, get there at 4 a.m., but this is what she wanted to pursue, and this is where the opportunity was. Young TV news journalists, they're all throughout the country working at TV news stations to get experience. And that's exactly what she was doing. She was popular. She had friends in the town. The town really seemed to support her and liked her as a news anchor. And that's probably why this case is so well known, especially in Iowa. Let's move to June of 1995. Jodi's 27th birthday was on June 5th of 1995. It was a big party, and it looks like she had lots of friends there, and it was probably the last big event that a lot of people saw her before she disappeared. June 27, 1995 was a Tuesday. Jodi was supposed to be at the TV news station at 4 a.m. She did not show up, and her producer, her boss, was very concerned. One of the reports I heard, though, that Jodi was somewhat tardy at her job, probably because it required her to be there at 4 a.m. That was something I heard in one of the reports. But she did not show up for her job. No one knew where she was. One of the things I remember, I think the producer of the news actually had to deliver the news that morning. She never showed up. The police were called. They go to her apartment. They see a struggle in the parking lot. In the parking lot, there was a clear sign of a struggle. There was a broken key, a shoe, a broken hair dryer in the parking lot when the police arrived, and they were most likely collected for evidence and documented. And no sign of Jodi. Now, if we look at the map here, there's a lot of open space near her apartment. It's not dense. Mason City, Iowa is not very dense at all, but there's a path, a river, woods, all near her apartment. It's not a big apartment complex. It just looks like 2 or 3 buildings. So someone could have very easily stealthily hid there and abducted her, attacked her, killed her, kidnapped her. A lot of bad stuff could happen. And that morning, her producer called her. She said they were running late, and the producer did talk to Jodi. Jodi said she would be there soon. Between the hours of 4 and 6 a.m., though, That is when Jodi would have been in the parking lot to get into her car to drive to her job. That is where it was believed that she was attacked. There were signs of struggle near the car. There were some belongings near the car. There's no sign of Jodi. So in 1995, there was lack of surveillance cameras, cell phones. This is kind of why it's a cold case. No one knows exactly who did it. There's one kind of large person of interest in this case who many people believe was suspected to do it, and his name was John Van Cise. John Van Cise was a older man compared to Jodi. He was around 20 years older than she was, and it's described they had a father-daughter relationship. John Van Cise seemed to have money. He seemed to like to hang out with Jodi. And in some of the journals that Jodi wrote down, Jodi wrote, and she never really described John Van Cise as nothing more than a friend or maybe a mentor, not really as a possible lover. John Van Cise, on the other hand, has always kind of defended it as just a friendship. And it's obviously somewhat bizarre, but there's no real direct evidence on John Van Cise of which has been released to the public. Many people felt it was creepy for a guy so much older to be hanging around this younger woman. That prior weekend, Jodi and some friends went to Iowa City. There's a lake there. She liked to water ski, so there's probably some water skiing and some water activities up there. And it doesn't appear there's any leads that come from that trip regarding to her disappearance. Noted that she went out on the town that Friday and Saturday night to do bar hopping, drinking. That Monday she came back, and that Monday night she went to John Van Cise's house to watch video of her birthday party, and that was the last known time anyone has actually seen. That John Van Cise was the last known person to actually see her alive. Monday night she was still alive. Tuesday morning, we know she was still alive. Whatever happened after that, we don't know. It's been speculated that there's even been grand juries pulled to see if there was enough evidence to go after John Van Cise. And he really remains the only person of interest in this case that's known to the general public. There's obviously tips on all sorts of people, sex offenders, but there was never really any direct evidence connecting anyone to this. We have a young woman who disappeared from a somewhat secluded town, who had big dreams of being a TV news reporter, and they were gone. Most people believe Jodi was killed somehow, some way that day. Jodi was officially legally declared dead in 2001, and there really has been no breaks in this case. We know this case, though, is very, very popular in Iowa. There's a civilian group, findjodi.com, that has really put probably thousands of hours, volunteer hours, in trying to find Jodi. Obviously, in all these cases, we hope there is some resolution to this case. As of 2023, there has been no major new updates in this case, but there's so much content online with social media is still very popular and talked about on YouTube, on true crime blogs. Kind of going to the theories here, I think Jodi was abducted and killed. It could have been, but I don't necessarily know if John Van Cise did it. I think she was abducted in the parking lot, but I can't. With John Van Cise, I think she was abducted by someone and killed, but I don't know if there's enough there for John Van Cise. I'm going to leave it at this. An anonymous person abducted Jodi and probably sexually assaulted her and then killed her, and then disposed of the body in this really undense area of Iowa. There was probably plenty of places to hide a body. Even the river there was right there that went through the town. So as always, we hope for a resolution in this case. This is a older case, and so many people in this case the original investigators are probably dying off. The people involved are dying off, and hopefully there's some movement in this case. To listen to more true crime stories, subscribe to Crime.Today.